from what I know of Jeff. You know, he's either fixing his cars or playing the guitar. There's no in-between for him.
Session work, and Jeff was in bands, and then Jeff was in the Yardbirds, and then I was in the Yardbirds with Jeff.
When you think of guitar legends, one name always stands out: Jeff Beck. The man was a genius, a revolutionary who could make 6 strings sound like an orchestra. But behind the groundbreaking solos and jaw-dropping techniques, there was another side to Beck, a fiery perfectionist with a volcanic temper and zero tolerance for anything less than brilliance. Some called him a visionary, others a nightmare to work with. From bandmates who stormed out of recording sessions to fellow legends who dismissed him as all flash and no soul, Jeff Beck's reputation wasn't built on admiration alone. It was also built on rivalries and resentment.
Heartbroken, shattered.
Didn't even
done.
Look at you. Not a glance.
No, I didn't know that he...
That was a fine...
Welcome to another episode of Backstage Tales, where today we're diving deep into the 5 legendary musicians who reportedly couldn't stand Jeff Beck. These feuds weren't small creative disagreements. They were personal clashes that shaped the course of rock history.
And Chris was better on bass than Jimmy, so then I shot myself in the foot because I had to put up with him.
5. Rod Stewart. At number 5 is Rod Stewart, the raspy-voiced superstar who once stood shoulder to shoulder with Jeff Beck in the Jeff Beck Group during the late 1960s.
But there's someone who's torn it apart.
Together, they seemed unstoppable, a pairing of Beck's blazing guitar with Stewart's gritty vocals. On paper, it was perfect. In reality, it was chaos. The trouble started during the recording of Truth in 1968. Beck's obsession with technical perfection clashed with Stewart's looser, more soulful style.
The rumor was that Jeff Beck was really a prick to work with.
According to rock journalist Chris Welch, Stewart once vented to session players. Jeff thinks every note has to be perfect, but he forgets that rock and roll is supposed to have soul. He's turned music into a mathematics exam. Beck's controlling attitude in the studio made things worse. Stewart wanted freedom. Beck wanted dominance. Arguments erupted over everything, from song arrangements to who deserved top billing. The breaking point came during their 1969 U.S. tour. Beck reportedly humiliated Stewart by criticizing his stage performance in front of the band. Stewart snapped, storming out and saying, "I don't need a guitar teacher who thinks he's God. Find yourself another puppet." The fallout was brutal. Stewart later dismissed their collaboration in interviews, calling Beck a musical dictator who suffocated creativity. What could have been one of rock's great partnerships instead became one of its most bitter breakups. 4. Eric Clapton. Landing at number 4 is Eric Clapton, the man once hailed as God by graffiti on London walls. But Clapton's respect for Beck never ran deep. To him, Beck was a showman, not a true bluesman. Their rivalry began in the mid-1960s as both emerged from the British blues
He
movement.
actually is never changed, and I mean, unlike myself, who's been kind of wandering around a lot of the time.
Clapton, a purist, lived and breathed the tradition of Robert Johnson and B.B. King. Beck, meanwhile, was experimenting, bending notes, adding effects, making the guitar scream in ways nobody had heard before. According to historian John Mayall, Clapton once sneered to friends, "Jeff's got the technique, but he's lost the soul. He treats the guitar like a science experiment, not an instrument of emotion. Real blues comes from suffering, not from a laboratory." Things boiled over in 1975 during a studio session. When Beck started showcasing his latest experimental tricks, Clapton reportedly muttered, "I came here to play music, not watch a magic show," before walking out. For Clapton, Beck represented everything he hated: style over substance, flash over feeling. For Beck, Clapton was a museum curator, stuck in the past, afraid to push boundaries. Their feud wasn't just personal, it symbolized a bigger war in rock itself, tradition versus innovation. 3. Jimmy Page. At number 3 is Jimmy Page, the mastermind behind Led Zeppelin. But before Zeppelin, Page and Beck shared the stage in the Yardbirds. What should have been a partnership of guitar gods quickly soured into competition. Page reportedly bristled at Beck's arrogance. According to historian Greg Russo, Page once remarked, "Jeff thinks being technically superior gives him the right to look down on everyone. He confuses skill with wisdom, and it makes him insufferable." The differences weren't just in personality, but philosophy. Page believed in serving the song, building atmosphere, creating mystique. Beck, on the other hand, often treated each track as a showcase for his guitar wizardry.
And he said, "No, it's Jimmy's album. What do you think?" I went, "Well, I'm very flattered because half the songs are the same kind of treatment, you know.
Tensions climaxed in 1966 during a recording session. Beck allegedly mocked Page's playing in front of others. Furious, "I'd rather play with musicians who know ego should serve the music, not the other way around." Even after both found superstardom, the rivalry lingered. Page privately described Beck as a genius with the attitude of a spoiled child, while Beck dismissed Page as overrated. Their split symbolized the fault line between teamwork and ego in rock's golden age. 2. Keith Richards. Sliding into number 2 is Keith Richards, the immortal riff machine of the Rolling Stones. Few guitarists embody raw, instinctive rock and roll like Richards. Which is exactly why he despised Jeff Beck's hyper-polished approach. Richards once reportedly told drinking buddies, "Beck's turned rock guitar into a bloody science experiment. He's so busy showing off his technique, he's forgotten rock and roll comes from the guts, not the practice room." The clash wasn't just about music, it was about philosophy. Richards believed rock should be dirty, unpredictable, even sloppy, because that's what gave it life. Beck, with his flawless execution, represented the opposite, precision without passion. Their tension came to a head during a 1973 London studio session. Richards made a jab about guitar players who think they're in an orchestra, and Beck fired back about musicians mistaking sloppiness for authenticity. Both walked out, and neither looked back. For Richards, Beck was the embodiment of everything wrong with modern guitar heroes, technically brilliant but emotionally hollow. To Beck, Richards was just an old-school rebel who mistook recklessness for art. 1. Ritchie Blackmore. And finally, the feud to end all feuds, Ritchie Blackmore of Deep Purple and Rainbow. If Beck was a perfectionist technician, Blackmore was a dramatic showman blending classical influences with heavy rock. At first, their paths crossed in the late 60s British scene, but respect quickly turned to disdain. According to journalist Jeff Barton, Blackmore once said, "Beck thinks his technique makes him superior, but he's forgotten music is supposed to move people. He's turned the guitar into a computer with strings." The tension peaked in 1971 during a recording session. Beck reportedly mocked Blackmore's use of classical scales, dismissing it as musical theater for people who can't handle real innovation. Enraged, Blackmore stormed out saying, "I don't take advice from someone who confuses showing off with expression." Their rivalry simmered for decades. Blackmore refused to mention Beck in interviews, calling him a machine pretending to be a musician. Beck, in turn, dismissed Blackmore's theatricality as gimmickry. It wasn't just two egos clashing, it was two competing visions of what rock guitar could be: pure technical mastery versus dramatic, emotional storytelling. And neither was willing to concede, and there you have it. 5 legendary musicians who reportedly despised Jeff Beck. From Rod Stewart walking out of the Jeff Beck group, to Clapton dismissing him as soulless, to Blackmore calling him a machine, Beck's career was just as defined by enemies as by admirers. So what do you think? Was Jeff Beck a misunderstood genius who threatened insecure rivals? Or was he truly as impossible as they claimed? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss another deep dive into the untold stories of rock history.